This is Radio Free Eskippakithiki. And here with me in the studio today is State Representative Cherlynn Stevenson. Hello, Cherlynn.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing quite well. It's very nice to be here.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. I've wanted to have you on here for quite a while. It just got a little bit interrupted by coronavirus and COVID and all that.
All of the things.
So we got a little while. Anybody who's out there listening, you should definitely call in with questions, comments, and concerns because she's your legislator. Unlike literally everybody else that I've ever had on this show, she could actually do something about what you're complaining about. So, this should be a good one. And let's just do a couple questions first. So,
okay.
Where shall we start?
Oh, my goodness. Well, coronavirus and all of the things,
we could do that.
I will start out and do my due diligence and what I feel, asking everybody if you are able to get vaccinated and you have not yet, we absolutely encourage you to do so. And if you are indoors or in crowds, please still mask up. Our COVID numbers are starting to dip, but
a little bit.
Just a little bit, but that is not yet being reflected in our hospitals. So we need everybody to still keep doing their part, so we can get our hospitals down past crisis level.
Yeah. I have whatever. I'm not going to be difficult on that. If I wanted to be difficult about something, I'd find a different point. But no, I will mention it. I've been very quiet, which, as you know, is not normal for me.
It is not you.
No, it's very unusual. I do have a bit of a medical background. And actually, my medical background is entirely in treating incredibly poor, incredibly disadvantaged Americans who have so little access to healthcare that I and the people I was working with were the closest they could come to doctors. Endless nightmare situations. So I feel like, in a way, I've seen the underbelly of the American healthcare system. And I have to say, if you are one in 10 people in this nation who has no access to an ICU bed at the best of times, what's really the incentive to clear the bed for somebody else?
I know. It's tough. It's really tough. And, healthcare has been something that I have tried to focus on in my short tenure in the legislature. I've only been in for 3 years. I was elected in 2018, started serving in 2019, and healthcare has been the subject of many of the bills that I have filed. If I had a magic wand and could wave it, each and every person would have access to quality, affordable healthcare.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we had a magic wand, where would we stop?
I know. But healthcare would absolutely be up there and one of the very first things that I would take care of for
everybody. I want to
hear
hear about your bills, but man, the American healthcare system is collapsing on all fronts. And all this emphasis on ICU beds, to me, comes across as blaming the poor.
Well, I totally get your point. I do. I really do. And, at this point, with coronavirus, up to this point, if somebody has had coronavirus, COVID, then they have not been responsible for any of the healthcare bills that are adding up. Now, a lot of insurance companies are starting to say, hey, we've got a vaccine out there, and if you didn't get vaccinated, we're going to stop covering you. I think Delta Airlines was one of the folks that came up and decided that premiums, they were going to charge extra for premiums if any of their employees had not been vaccinated for COVID. I really expect the industry and the private industry to step up and keep doing things like that. And, for me, if that can incentivize people to get vaccinated, then I'm going to say yes. I know that you're probably, I'm guessing, not a huge vaccine guy, but
my opinion is nuanced, and it's not a moment for nuance.
Right. No.
I have too much information on this one, and it stinks.
Well,
I would much rather, I don't know. Right.
But, until we get a universal healthcare program here in the United States, there are lots of things that we can do. I have filed bills to do away with surprise billing. Thankfully, the federal government finally stepped up and did some work on that. And so my bill is really not needed anymore.
That's a nice feeling, though.
But it is.
That's
it
really
is.
good, yeah.
It is. It's kind of validating to know that you're on the right track.
I call that a solid win.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
In the General Assembly, we have made a lot of progress on capping copays for insulin. I have personally filed a bill to do that with EpiPens. We all know that they're crazy.
Yeah.
They're so expensive. kids
people have to have
you
them.
have to have them.
And stores, I mean, and it's institutions have to stock them.
Yes, and if it's a kid, their mom needs to have one, their dad needs to have one, especially if they're in different households. They need to have one that they give to their school.
Yep.
And so when those
and
things
they go bad, they've got to be
they
replaced.
do go bad. The expirations are not super long. So
Yeah.
it's something to be concerned about. And I also have a bill about an all payer claims database. I think that is something that we need.
What's that mean?
So that really means if we want quality health care at a value, and we want more access to that, then everybody who pays claims in a state would have to submit their information. And that means that then healthcare consumers can shop they can see what hospital A, B, C, and D will charge for the same procedure. And so basically it's like shopping for healthcare.
Publish their prices.
So it's making, it's increasing transparency in healthcare prices.
Sort of in the same
so that
wheelhouse as,
consumers can make
getting rid of surprise billing, but on the front end.
So, and in emergent situations, people cannot stop and shop. But if you have to have a surgery coming up, you need a pacemaker, you need to have a knee replacement. I think people should be able to go out and see where all that's available and what that's going to, entail. At the end of the day,
by our American theory, that should drive prices down and improve quality. It's
exactly.
supposed to, and sometimes it does.
Exactly. So currently we have 31 states that either have one already or are in process of creating one. And so my bill will force Kentucky to create one.
Really?
Yeah.
How's it going? Do you have any co-sponsors?
A few here and there. I guess this is the time that we'll get into the fact that I am a Democrat and in the super minority.
You're allowed to
and
complain. Are they really stonewalling you?
Absolutely.
Like absolutely childishly stonewalling?
Absolutely. I mean, I think over the last 3 years, you can count on one hand how many Democratic bills have been heard and passed.
Yeah.
One hand.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating because things like the all-payer claims database is really not partisan. Even President Trump talked about it. Governor Bevin was not against it.
Yeah, it seems really reasonable.
It is very reasonable. And if you think about it, when we go to the grocery store, we don't accept a brown paper bag full of produce.
Yeah.
We want to inspect our apples and our grapes and be sure that we're getting high quality, valuable fruit for our money.
Absolutely.
So it's, healthcare should be the same way.
Okay, all right. I'm convinced. That's really good. And it just seems so natural. So, they really do just oppose it on purely partisan grounds.
So, some things, we shop around. We try to find a Republican co-sponsor or somebody that's just willing to sponsor the bill outright and see if we can get that pushed through. For me, I am not in this job for myself, to promote myself. I am here to try to make the lives of Kentuckians better. And if giving a really great idea for a bill to somebody else to make it pass, I am totally willing to do that. Okay, I don't need the glory.
I do have some questions about that, actually. I should maybe move a microphone because just in case people want to hear what I'm saying here. But why are you doing this?
Really, I started... well, I guess once we got Governor Bevin and after President Trump happened, I decided that I needed to find a candidate to get behind.
Yeah.
I needed to find a candidate that I believed in. There are vast differences in what's going on in the federal government versus our state government.
Yeah.
And what goes on in your state government absolutely impacts your everyday life much more than what happens at the federal government. So that's the place that you want to get involved, local politics, state politics. So I started looking for a candidate to get behind. And then one day a friend just happened to say, I think you should run. And I was like, are you smoking crack? And she was like, no, really, I think that your voice matches this district. I really think that you should step up. And I represent the 88th district, and it is a red district. And I am the first Democrat to ever hold that seat. And I won my first election by a whopping 48 votes.
I was responsible for 3 of those.
So, so I think it really just getting out, talking to people, meeting them where they were. There were people that we went to their door, knocked on their door in 2018, and they were like, no one has ever come to the store and asked us for a vote, and we will vote for you just because you did.
Yeah.
But I just feel like we really had a winning message that matches the district. Even though it does have more Republican voters, it's very much a purple district.
Yeah.
Very much a purple
Wasn't
district.
It Stan Lee's district, or it was
So,
split off from Stan
No,
Lee's?
so it was Robert Benvenuti held the seat before I did.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, so, just going out and talking about those kitchen table topics, the
Yeah.
things that people worry about when they lay down in bed at night, are my kids safe?
Yeah.
If they aren't safe or they're sick,
Yeah.
do we have access to quality, affordable health care?
Yeah.
Do they have access to a quality education? I'm a huge supporter of public education. I've been no secret about that.
Oh, I'm sure you've heard about
Whatsoever.
Winchester's current, or County's current controversies.
But I believe people here want to, they want the environment to be better. They want just their everyday lives to be better. And anything that I can do to help push that forward, I truly believe in. I don't believe that makes me idealistic. I think that it's just being a good neighbor.
Yeah.
It's my civic duty.
It's having the ability and the responsibility. And they sort of tie in together. Like, you come from real estate, right?
No, I don't actually. I come from a nonprofit background.
Really?
Yep.
So how did you get it together to...
Really.
This is a game for rich people. It really is.
Well, and I certainly am not that. And, that was one of the first things when we started talking about running. I was like, I don't have the money to fund a campaign. What, I can't do this. I'm not made for this. And really, it came down to a group of people who believed that everyday Kentuckians deserved everyday Kentuckians representing them in the halls of justice. And so we made it happen with $5 here, $10 there.
Are you for real?
Every dollar helps.
Yeah.
Yes, the teachers got behind me. Their organizations got behind me. I had a little bit of help from some of the unions.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was friends and family and people in the district that just believed in our message and were ready to see, that seat change a little bit. And so, again, I believe that it really resonated with folks, that somebody that looks just like them, comes from a background just like them,
What
was
nonprofit
carrying
did
their
you do?
voice to Frankfurt.
What nonprofit were you doing?
So I was actually helping a lot of various nonprofits with fundraising, just event planning, that kind of stuff. I had been on the board at the American Cancer Society. I had helped them raise about $2 million, which is, I know, I'm pretty proud of that.
No, raising money is no joke.
It's not. And
It
so
really
you would
is
think,
not.
you would think that would translate into the political scape, but I can absolutely ask people for money for, sick kids, but asking for money for yourself is difficult. But you just have to look at it as, asking people to invest in their future, in their kids' future, investing in our state. It's not necessarily for me whatsoever. And I hate that money is such a big part of politics and that I have to raise such a crazy amount of money. But
yeah, I know.
But, good things come from that. Good things will come from having good people in office.
You know what I see? I see the obsession with money really as just like the human need for metrics.
Yeah.
It really, like Daniel DeRoche, bless his heart, could never see anything in anybody's campaign beyond how much money they'd raised. And it's actually the same with those dumb school scores that were released today that I refuse to even look at.
Right.
People get a test in their head, and they get a number in their head. We're irrationally attracted to numbers, and they attach themselves to fundraising. I don't even resent it anymore. I'm just coming to accept it.
It's awful. It's a fact of life in politics right now that you have to have money to get your message in front of voters.
Yeah.
But ultimately, at the end of the day, I believe that if you insist on putting people over politics and profits of any kind, then you're going to win, and that's something that people, want to hear.
I believe that. I will say I wish I believed that. And the fact that you're sitting here right now is actually a major sign that, maybe it's true.
Thanks.
I hope so. Money is votes. Money is congealed energy. And your job as a politician is to make impossible promises and to deliver to them. And your job is to do these things, to pull money out of thin air and to make to change people's lives and their relationships with their children and all these other things that nobody can possibly do. Like, God bless the millennials, they want you to change the weather.
I know. I wish we could.
Yeah. I mean,
Like every day would be like today.
yes, it's lovely out there.
Yes.
Yeah, we'd have it rain on the farms from 9 to 5, and then
correct.
we'd be done. But it just isn't that easy. All right, well, but now we're back with Cherlynn Stevenson, the representative for the 88th District here in Kentucky, which is, what, the southern half of Fayette?
It's kind of like the southeast corner
Yeah.
a little bit. You know, it kind
Serious
of wraps
Daniel
around
Boone
the outside
territory.
of Manowar. Yeah.
Yeah, you got...
So Hamburg, and then it wraps all the way around past Tate's Creek, but not all the way to Nicholasville. And then it goes out to the county line.
So it's all it's all in Fayette?
It's all encompassed within Fayette County.
But you have yeah, Athens is yours, right?
Yes, correct.
Man, isn't that a cool little place?
It is. And there's a new restaurant going to be opening up there next week, I think.
Really?
Yeah, I think, don't hold me to it. I think it's called the Lunchbox, but it's going to be out there where the old school was.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, I'll go. I drive through Athens all the time just because it's pretty.
I know.
Yeah. Okay, so when we left, we were discussing campaign finance and what it means and what it does. So, you come from nonprofit, and I come from comics, oddly, and I find campaign fundraising sort of fascinating because it's the most pure form of salesmanship possible.
Yeah.
Like, you're not offering them anything. It's against the law to offer them something.
Well, that is true. I guess you just have to look at it as an investment.
Yeah.
An investment in a better Commonwealth, a better future for yourself and for your kids.
Yeah.
And hope that the right people get in office to make those things happen.
Yeah, somehow that we can power this machine.
Yeah.
Well enough to do what we need to do, because there's a lot we need to do. I think I might have a slightly more apocalyptic view of the future than you, but I'm of the opinion that we have to get Kentucky's house in order right away, because
Right.
America's moving here. They're not.
Yeah, and especially with the brand new news that we just had, a new electric vehicle and battery plant is coming. Ford is putting a $5.8 billion investment in Kentucky. It's the largest economic development investment ever in Kentucky's history. Over 5,000 jobs to start, and we all know that there will be wraparound businesses that pop up all around that. So ultimately, it will end up being more than that. We're all really excited. It's going to grow Central Kentucky. It's pretty soon. I can see that really having just a major impact, and at some point, the Louisville, Lexington, Elizabethtown, that whole area just,
Yeah, I think it's going to turn into a
just
giant city.
sprout up. Yeah, I think it is. Somebody yesterday actually said, like before long, that area could be an Atlanta-ish type place. I don't know that we'll ever get that big, but
Do you want that?
I don't know. That's I think a lot of what makes Kentucky would go away if we had that. So I'm a big fan of keeping our green space and our horse farms and all that good stuff here in Central Kentucky. But
that's gotta, one of the big breakthroughs for me around this place was when I realized what the Fayette Alliance was and what they do.
they do such important work. It's
deal.
really great.
Yeah.
They're great people doing great work. If you don't know about them, look them up.
No, they're quiet.
They are kind of quiet, but they do their work in quiet. But the work that they do is really important.
Yeah.
For us to maintain all the things that we love about being here. And I think something that a lot of people fail to realize is we have our city, and there are so many economic drivers right here, and then just a very short drive, you're out of the city, you're out into farmland and what Lexington is really known for. But that is a huge part of our economy as well. Those are working farms.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And it's just, I hate to admit it, but it's our signature industry.
Yeah.
I mean, if we don't take care of it, it doesn't stick around. So
Correct.
Yeah, I'm a huge supporter of the Fayette Alliance. I've always been sort of entertained by their attitude, but boy, do I like them.
Yes. Great people.
Benevolent dictators. I guess I'm allowed to say that. I don't know. We need smart, rich people. Like,
Well, it's just it's such it is an eclectic group of people that came together to form the alliance. But again, they're doing what needs to be done, and I applaud their efforts.
I felt so bad for them during the pandemic because everybody's in a drive-in, and I knew that had to be like hurting them. So they hate drive-ins so much. Drive-throughs.
Yes.
I've never been to a meeting where they didn't complain about drive-throughs. And suddenly the entire city is feeding themselves off of them. I bet that had to hurt. But I mean, from the rest of the point. Anyway, Fayette Alliance. Good friends to have. Okay, so you were talking about the economic development a minute ago. Mm-hmm. Did you have anything to do with it?
Well, in special session that we just had at the beginning of the month, we actually passed a bill that allowed us to put forth some incentives to make this deal happen. And without that, I really think Ford would have probably gone somewhere else.
What were the incentives?
So it's really kind of almost like a cash back, a little bit of your investment. But, it's what Kentucky needed to do to be competitive. Yeah. And look what we're getting out of it. Again, we are in no position to turn away 5,000 new jobs. No. And those are going to be really good paying jobs. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's something, when we're looking at economic development projects that are coming forward, and that's something that we need to really talk about. How many jobs are coming? Are they full-time? Are they part-time? How long will they last? Are they sustainable jobs? But what are they going to pay? And I think that that's the responsible questions to ask when things like that are coming in. And, I know that some people, there were a lot of non-disclosure agreements signed around this deal happening. So when we passed this bill in special session, the large majority of us outside of leadership did not know that this project was on the table, what it was for. But we knew that this and a few other projects were coming down the pike, that we really needed to do this again to make
you were
Kentucky.
asked to vote on it without being able to read the whole deal, or you were?
So we knew the deal. We knew what the economic incentives were going to be. We just did not know the specific projects that were coming down the pike. We did not know it was Ford. We did not know that they were going to be an electric vehicle company, but we knew that there were projects looming that desperately needed us to make that move. So, it's a huge shout out to Governor Beshear for making that happen, and our economic development cabinet for the work that they did on this. But again, it would not have been possible had the General Assembly not passed that bill in special session. And so look how quickly they were able to turn it around. Clearly this project was kind of hinging on that happening. And once we were able to do that, then we were able to lock it in. And
so you think that's what the special session was really, they were trying to accomplish during the special session, and they
I think it was part of it. I think it was double duty. I think, the governor knew that we needed to get this done. And, unfortunately, coronavirus had gotten so bad that he needed to call us into special session to try to address that. And so it just happened, that it came along at the right time and that we were able to do that. Otherwise, we would have had to have waited until January.
I really don't mind it when Andy's tricky. I don't mind it at all. I think his dad was really tricky. And I think he accomplished a lot by being tricky. I guess it's open. But you remember when he sold KY, he sold Obamacare to Kentucky by saying...
Kentucky Connect.
Yeah, yes. We can't. You're going to have Obamacare. We have to set this up. I'm sorry, that was brilliant.
It really was. And I think that it's, something that they both are going to have legacies over those things, and it's
he's doing a good job. Not all my friends obviously don't agree, but I think Andy's for the most part doing a really good job.
I think Andy's doing a phenomenal job. I don't think any of us, in 18 when I ran and in 19 when he ran, none of us could foresee that a global pandemic was coming, and it hit us 3 months into his, his term. And I think that he's done
2 things.
Yeah. I think that he's done a really great thing. He had so many good ideas and so many things that he wanted to accomplish for the people of Kentucky. And then the pandemic hit and it took up so much of his time, and rightfully so. I think that he did a great job. We all know that Kentucky was one of the states that was faring the best. We were doing such a great job, and then all of the lawsuits were filed. The supermajority in the General Assembly voted to take away a lot of his executive powers, and now look where we are. We're one of the states doing the worst. So, proof's in the pudding.
I don't write a lot of songs. I was bored last year, and I wrote a song called "All of My Friends Are Suing Andy Bashir," but I wish they would lay off.
That's awesome. I wish they'd lay off too.
It was really fun when that impeachment thing was going on. That was everybody. That was just my friends suing each other. It was the weirdest thing. Like every single case was somebody I knew suing
somebody that you knew. Well,
it's so weird how people get so twisted up in this stuff.
It's really unfortunate that, politics has such an ugly side to it, because there are so many good things that we can do, and
we have to
taking care of each other is one of those things. That's a lot of people will tell you that they don't think that that's the government's role, but there are problems that are so big that nobody but the government can really step in, and obviously, trying to tackle a global pandemic is one of those things.
Well, yeah, especially you have a very direct approach to advocacy here. You're just like, I'm gonna help you get a better job. I'm gonna help you get healthcare. Like, just straight ahead, like, what can I do to help a person?
Yeah, for me, that's what it's all about. I read a book once upon a time, and the opening line was, "It's not about you." And I've just really tried to live into that. My husband and I do not have children, and so we are both very service oriented. He's a Rotarian. Their motto is service above self, and that's something that we both just try to live into all the time.
Yeah, you really do seem very service oriented in all this. I guess it's good to be selfless.
Nobody's truly 100% selfless, but we
sure,
definitely try, and having a spouse that feels the same way, it's great. It's a good thing for us to do together, and then encourage one another in our individual endeavors.
Oh, that's nice.
It's good.
Yeah, that's actually really nice. Yeah, because I've seen him around with you a few times. He always seems like he's having a good time.
Yeah, he is. It's so funny. He is an introvert that extroverts really well.
Yeah.
So we'll be at a big event, and we'll go home, and he goes to his office to play his record player and do all these things, and then I get on the phone and start talking to somebody else, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, we were just with people and you talked and talked and talked. How do you want to keep talking?" But I'm an extrovert and he is an introvert, and that's okay. We complement each other really well. But he is a huge part of my campaign every other year, and he is so supportive. And he has done really great things in his capacity with Rotary. He has chaired the Lexington Dancing with the Stars charity for, probably going on about 8 years. And, just helping him and getting involved in that. Their major beneficiary is Surgery on Sunday. And I actually just joined the Surgery on Sunday board, which, is a great organization doing very needed, unfortunately, very needed things. But
now, what do you do on these boards?
So you just sit around and,
listen to people and
talk about the issues and just, be sure. So this one is very much an organizational. So obviously, this is something that's happening every month. So there's a surgery day every single month. And so it's just being sure.
I don't know it, but what's this program?
So Surgery on Sunday is a program here in Lexington. It was started by Dr. Moore, who just knows that there are uninsured or underinsured persons who desperately need surgery. And so doctors, nurses, surgical techs all volunteer their time to come in, and one Sunday every month there's Surgery on Sunday. There's usually 3 or 4 surgery teams going, and they provide surgery to people for free.
Wow.
Yes.
How long's the waiting line?
It's not as long as you would suspect. But, we're serving, again, lots of people every month. Yeah. Everything from colonoscopies to cataract surgery to, even even bigger, really major surgeries. We have people come from all over the state. We even have some people that come from out of state sometimes to get to us. Wow. And, it's
hardcore.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I guess, are there any provisions for therapy and aftercare for people? Or, that's asking a lot, I know.
In very specific cases, maybe. Most of the time people need to come down and do some type of a pre-op visit, and then they're required to typically come in and do at least one aftercare visit. And then we help try to find services, especially if they're driving a long way, to help support them after the fact.
Yeah, because but like putting America's patchwork healthcare system together, it brings up something you mentioned earlier. It's like I see coronavirus as a critique of the American healthcare system expressed on the bacteriological level, if that makes any sense. Like, there's been lots of bugs. This is the one that found its way through because this is the one that happened to perfectly hit all our weaknesses: our short attention span, our massively uninsured population, the suspicion that comes with spending your lifetime outside of the system and seeing the negative sides of the system.
Right.
When you only see the negative sides of the system, you don't have a lot.
Right.
Anyway, but so when I say this isn't a compliment or an insult, it's just the absolute way it is. We have a for-profit healthcare system in America.
Absolutely.
And
it's gross. I'll say it.
Yeah,
it's gross.
It's awful. And I would, if I could magic my family to France, you wouldn't be talking to me. You'd be talking to a puff of smoke. I'd be gone.
Well, the truth of the matter is, when you look at other countries, the other 12 richest countries, our health outcomes rank number 12.
Yeah.
And we spend by far the most money.
It ain't working.
No.
It ain't working at all.
Per capita, the government spends something like $10,000 per person.
Yeah.
The next closest, I believe, is Switzerland, maybe at like $7,100, and then almost everybody else, it's like $4,000 to $6,000.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's all in the numbers how our system is just not working. Okay, but the one theoretical advantage of this nightmarish system that we're in is if I am in a for-profit system, it's not like England where if this guy's drinking a soda and it's got trans fat in it, well, that's money out of my pocket, right? Because we all paid it. Well, no, your healthcare has nothing to do with me. Right? Like, it's practically on different planets.
Theoretically, yes.
It's not working out that way, but that is what we were promised. That is what we were offered.
Correct. That's what
we
the free market is supposed to give us.
Exactly. So the free market. Oh, when you put it that way, I'll mention that to the libertarian. Anyway, but so the same system that allows people with nice insurance to not really care if somebody's dying of cancer is the exact same system that allows somebody who's outside the system to say, like, I don't care if you have an ICU bed. That is not my problem. You bought it. You paid for this. You didn't get what you paid for. Take it up with the manager. And if your insurance company starts cutting you for not getting a vaccination, that is 100% their right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
They can do anything they want to.
Yeah, it is. We a lot of people don't want to hear it, but our system is set up that we can't dictate what private businesses do.
Yeah, it's a little bit terrifying sometimes. We have a lot to learn. So, hello, welcome back to WRFL 88.1, all the way to the left. I'm here in the studio with our 88th District State Representative, Cherlynn Stevenson. So I have a question for you.
Okay.
Would you rather be knighted by the Queen of England or be a Kentucky colonel?
Oh, be a Kentucky colonel. Are you kidding me? Of course.
It's like if somebody gives you a multiple choice question and one of them's ALA, you know which one you have to go.
Yes.
All right. Well, okay. So my tendency is always to go for things that I want to talk about, and I don't want to monopolize.
No, feel free.
We had somebody that wanted to talk about vaccination. I hope they're listening, and I hope we covered it well enough.
Yeah, I think they just wanted us to encourage folks. So the response was just a pot of what looks like spaghetti sauce with macaroni spelling out "get the jab." So I think we covered that.
Welcome to the internet. All right. So how do you feel about the CIA?
Oh my goodness.
They're not really your problem. You're a state legislator.
They aren't. Thank goodness they are not my problem. People ask me all the time, where do you want to go from here? What do you think you'll run for next? And
that's a much better question.
Seriously, no. I am right where I want to be. I don't, I'm not a political climber.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine getting involved in federal level politics. It's just so much extra. And we have our hands full right here in Kentucky, and I want to help make Kentucky the best that it can possibly be. And so the CIA, the FBI, all that kind of stuff can just stay up there, and I'll stay right here.
How do you feel? Okay, so I do have to ask, how do you feel about National Guard deployments?
It's really interesting.
Because that is your wheelhouse, right?
It
You get to
it
decide.
is. Thank goodness that they're here, because
Yeah.
sometimes we just have to have those extra set of hands, and they have many to supply. So the work that they're doing right now to help out with our hospitals is amazing. We have most people listening probably know that we have a terrible bus driver shortage all across Kentucky, but we're feeling that really hard right here in Fayette County. We have more than 30 open positions, and so it's resulting in bus routes being canceled every single day.
Wow.
So I actually had asked the governor if we could have the National Guard come and start driving school buses.
Well, something
And
they're qualified to do.
So it's really funny because I asked that question and the answer was, I don't know, let's look into it. And so within like a couple days, another state, it came out that that National Guard was starting to drive buses there. Maryland, maybe. So I sent it on, and they were like, we think that this is a great idea, but right now they're just so tied up in the hospitals, and we feel like that has to be the priority, and we can't pull them out. So
Yeah.
he hasn't told me this, but I am hopeful that, once our hospitals, the need for them to be at our hospitals starts to lessen, and that they can be freed up, that maybe that's a way that we can use them.
You raised something else that I'm sort of curious about, because I assume your sources of information are far better than ours. Like, of all the various shortages right now, which ones concern you the most?
It's really hard. They're all very nuanced. Right now, a lot of things, people are just up in arms about things that are or are not happening in our schools.
Yeah.
But if we don't have enough bus drivers to get our kids there,
Yeah.
for those kids, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I think that you kind of just have to go back to that hierarchy of needs. And so right now, people's safety and their health have to come first. And so I completely understand that. And then some of those other things have to come along. But we are constitutionally mandated to provide an equal, system for public education for
Efficient.
our kids here
Efficient's the word.
in our schools. So, the teachers, man, they are just under the gun. They're constantly given new challenges.
Yeah.
They almost always rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
And I just, hats off to them. They have a hard enough job as it is, and then throw this pandemic nonsense on there.
Yeah, things were bad before.
Yeah, so it's tough. And then you've got politicians that want to take away their pension, and you just throw all these kinds of things in there on them. But they have been asked to wear so many different hats. So many of them,
And
they got
masks.
into teaching for love of children and their personal love of learning and wanting to share that, and then they get in to the classroom and they're just asked to do so many things other than that. So they're having a really hard time right now. So shout out to our teachers. But those things are the things, health and then education. Those are the two things that are hitting me the most. Those are the things that I get communication from my constituents about the most right now in this season of life. So,
Well, no, I mean, that makes perfect sense. I mean, yeah, it's really not a surprise to hear that those really are the two
Right,
biggest emergencies, because that's what they look like.
it is. And again, we do hope that this is just a season, and that, it won't be too long until we can
Followed by the slow burn of our legal situation, our
get
legal
back
system.
to, I know.
Yeah, well, those guys, that's what happens in triage. But I mean, man, Bashir came out swinging on. We had a real good thing going on prisoner rights. For
Yes.
just a minute.
Yep, we did.
Yeah.
Hopefully, hopefully we'll get back to it. Hopefully, one thing that can be said with so many of his executive privileges being taken away, COVID is still on his plate, but his plate is not nearly as full as it was with COVID now.
Really have.
So, it's going to allow him to focus on a lot of the other things that he, talked about when he was campaigning, and the good things that he wants to do for our state. So,
I don't want to
let him get back to it.
the Republicans, but I mean, they really did just decree that everybody in the state's going to get coronavirus by keeping the schools open. There's no other way this can work out.
Well, I'm really disappointed that COVID was obviously so bad that we felt like we needed to go back in for a special session.
Yeah.
And then we did the one thing, that really could make the situation worse.
No, I think about it all the time because I think we were talking about this a little while. Was it?
It was before we went on air, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna be like, oh, we're educated, oh, we're clever, oh, we're the clever party, then we have to be results oriented. And we did just sort of provoke the conservatives to absolute disaster. A disaster that involves our children. Like, we don't get out of this. You don't get to walk alone through a pandemic.
Yeah. Well, and I guess the biggest thing for me was for 18 months, they had been kind of yelling, at the governor, let us be involved in the decision making. We are an equal branch and we should get to help make decisions and we want to decide. And then it became, no, you're deciding bad. We want to decide. It's us, it's us, it's us. Well, we got into special session and they had the chance to decide, and they passed the buck to let someone else decide.
A pure power play. It's really hard to interpret that any more kindly than a pure power play when they're up there saying, like, no, we don't have a plan. Like, you had 18 months and you were stuck indoors. What were you doing? Playing Minecraft? You can come up with a plan. I came up with a plan and I was playing Minecraft. Anything could have been better than this. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to pick sides.
Well, and I am not somebody that wants to sit here and really just bash Republicans. Don't hear me saying that because, again, a lot of people think that I'm a moderate. I don't know that I necessarily classify myself that way, but
I wouldn't have thought about it that way.
But
I would have called you a resistance liberal if that's all right.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But I really, again, people are people. I hate being divided into categories. I hate that we have created liberal and conservative and Democrat and Republican into almost slurs.
Yeah.
I just really want to serve the people and serve the people of the 88th District in a way that they asked me to. Being a representative is just that. I am supposed to go there and represent them. It's not always what I think or what I want. I do have a duty to do that.
Absolutely.
And I do not take that lightly.
I appreciate that, actually.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, everybody gets into it for different reasons. And, like, obviously I'm suspicious of altruism. Everybody is. But you really, I don't know, you've always struck me like your heart's in the right place and that you're doing this for as good reasons as are conceivably possible.
Well, thanks.
I'm sure you enjoy the praise and all that. Like, I'm sure you enjoy, like, walking into a room and having everybody turn around and look at you. But
it's kind of weird, to be really honest.
It gets strange.
Like being recognized, like when you're in the grocery store and you're just going down an aisle and somebody's looking at you and it's very clear that they know who you are and you have met, tens of thousands of people.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my goodness, who is that? But
they walk up and give you 95 theses.
Yeah. So it's it's a little weird, and so I don't consider myself famous by any means.
What do you like about the job?
I really do. I like being able to. Like being able to serve people. Something that a lot of people here don't know. We have so the LRC, the legislative employees that we have there in Frankfort are nonpartisan, and so they are there really to serve us. And there's a whole department there called Constituent Services.
Yeah.
And so somebody calls us with a problem that we have absolutely no idea how to fix. These people know what to do. And so, we can refer our constituents down to them, and if they can't find an answer, they will help them find someone who has an answer. They can always point people to people that can help them.
Yeah.
And, it's really funny. I think being here in Lexington, we're a little spoiled because we have services for just about everything here.
Yeah.
But when you get out into some of these very small rural communities, their state representative is somebody that they turn to for help with things. I would never have ever thought about me personally contacting my state representative or state senator about. But we have means to help
the holler
them.
Can't get the internet at her house. Can you help me out? Absolutely.
But yes, I mean, all kinds of things. So we see people asking for help with all kinds of things, and these people normally can help them. And I just think that that's amazing. I think it's a resource out there that people have no idea that their tax dollars are paying for, and more of them should probably take advantage of that.
Well, that's always a problem when you're dealing with the poor is that they don't know how to access the services.
Right.
And it's not because they're dumb.
Yeah.
It's because they just don't know how.
Yeah.
Like, they're not beneficiaries of our middle class upbringing where we know how to fill out all the forms.
Another part of this journey has been I have made some of the best friends that I know I will ever have. A lot of the people who worked with me on my campaign team, people who were out. So one thing about me, if you don't know, is my team, we are super duper door knockers.
I did know that.
So, in 2018, we knocked on about 24,000 doors. And, that team was not very large, There were probably about 25 people total that knocked doors at some point. And then there were about 10 people who were knocking consistently every single day.
Oh yeah, the packs got addicted.
It was so I had a lot of people in the education community step up, a lot of retired teachers to help me. And I talk to those people every single day. I'm on a text thread with like 17 people, and it just goes nonstop all day, every day, talking about things. So I'm just connected to these people, and the people that I serve with, are just wonderful. And you kind of get bonded. It's kind of like when you hear people come home from war and they talk about how bonded they were with the people that they were fighting in the trenches with. And that's a little bit what
I think so, yeah.
It's like being in the legislature. And so I just feel very,
in the trenches right now.
So
like, quite literally, you're fighting defensive war.
Yeah. So I just feel very bonded to some of those people. And obviously I'm closer to some than others, but they are some of my best friends. And if I happen to lose my election next year, I know that these people, I will be in contact with them, and they will be my friend for life, and we'll be at each other's funerals, and
probably
one will not be able to be at the other, but
I see what you mean there. Yeah, every time I start getting really frustrated, I go, man, but I like everybody so much. There's something about the political people in this state. I've done politics in several states. And it's specific to this state. Like, people don't realize how different the states are and how lucky we are here with our political scene. And even when it's completely insane, like the Republican legislature doing what they did with COVID, there's still a rationality and a personality to it that's lacking everywhere else. And I mean, like, these are just like, they are the most pleasant people. And you're in the internet age where, like, I hate to admit it, but the average person driving by the window right now has no idea how to disagree with someone.
No. You're right. And the internet has unfortunately led to, this devolvement of discourse.
Yeah.
And I really hate it. But, for the most part, we are able to maintain decorum when we're there and we're arguing. A lot of people will see us fuss while we're on that House floor, and we're having very serious, heated debate. But yet, you go out into the hallways and there's niceties exchanged, and people know about each other's kids and all that kind of stuff. And so I think it's really important for us to try to remember that most everyone gets into it for the right reasons. Most people are there to try to do what they think is best for their community. And we all have more in common than we have different.
I hope so.
And
have you made any unlikely friends yet?
A few, yes. I won't necessarily talk about those, but I have. But I have made some unlikely friends, and again, being in the super minority, you have to build those relationships if you want to get something done. And so I'm proud of that work. So Representative Kim Banta out of Northern Kentucky, she and I have been actually working on an animal cost of care bill for animals that are seized.
Really?
And we are going to present that next week in Judiciary together. I think it's great. People really want to see Democrats and Republicans working across the aisle and working together a lot more. And I think it's important to find those things that need to happen and find the places where we can come together and agree. And really, work on those and try to do more of that. So I'm excited for that. Yeah.
It's just so obvious. There's you can't get out of this by yourself. Like, we're in it together. It's sink or swim.
Yes.
And there's no individual response to a pandemic.
Yeah.
My poor dad, I love him so much, but he's like, I'm vaccinated. I feel like I've got a cone of protection around me. You literally don't, Dad.
Right. You just might not die.
I shouldn't talk about my dad on UK radio. And we are at the second hour of our interview with Cherlynn Stevenson, the state representative for the 88th District. Now, Cherlynn, you're a legislator, right?
Yep.
Name every law.
I can't do it.
Okay. What's your favorite?
I don't know anyone that can do it.
No. I tried to read the whole Constitution once. It was really long. Anyway, the Kentucky Constitution. What's your favorite law right now? Which one do you think is cleverest?
Oh my gosh, that's a really hard question. You should have given me a little prep time to think about that.
Okay, I can ask you another question then.
All right.
Which one would you get rid of if you could just get rid of one?
Oh my goodness. You are trying to get me in trouble.
I can make it worse. I know how.
No, please do not. Oh my goodness. So, just going right back to what we passed in special session, one of the bills that we passed had a provision that said the governor nor anyone in his administration could pass statewide mask mandates until June of 2023, which, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. At the end of, in session, we had a vaccine. People were getting vaccinated. We thought that we were at the end of this, and the beginning of the summer, everything was looking really great. End of spring, early summer, everybody thought that life was getting back to normal. And then, it very much was not.
Yeah.
So, not being able to foresee the things that are coming, I think it's really difficult to have that placed upon us, especially when, the science tells us that is one of the two ways that we have to really combat this virus. And so I voted against the bill that contained that provision specifically for that provision.
Yeah.
So I would absolutely undo that if I could. Something that a lot of people have probably heard me talk about is right after I was elected, my husband had a massive pulmonary embolism and almost died. And the doctor that saved him was Dr. Stack. He was working in the ER, at St. Joe East.
Yeah.
And so, he saved my husband. And then shortly after that, he got his appointment by Governor Beshear, and I was just like, oh my goodness, like I was the original I trust Dr. Stack, that hashtag went around for a while, but it and I just completely lost my entire train of thought.
I'm trying to find out what laws you would repeal if you could.
So yeah,
but no, this is a good thought too.
Goodness.
I mean, like
Yes.
I've liked Stack a lot. I liked Ken. Kenneth.
Yes. So
they really assemble a charming crew.
But so going back to that, the fact that our Commissioner of Public Health cannot help us to make a decision like that on a statewide level, no matter how bad things get right now, it's kind of scary. So I would definitely strip that out. But that's something that's affecting us right now in the immediate. We pass tons of laws every year.
Yes.
Hundreds of them, as a matter of fact, in either 30
Almost
or
like it's
60
your job.
days. It is our job to enact new laws. But the large majority of the ones that we pass, pass almost unanimously because we do a lot of really good things, and it's the things that we focus on that we don't agree on, and the bills that are contentious that obviously get the most publicity. But overall, I think the legislature does a really good job. Of course, I wish that the majority minority were flipped, and a few of those contentious bills would fall the other way. But for the most part, we're doing some good work.
I want to agree with you, and also I'm having a tough time on it because I'm just not pleased with their recent behavior. I'm not, and I didn't move to Kentucky thinking like, oh, there's no Republicans here anymore. Like I was well aware of what I was getting into, and I came back here because I was tired of screaming at people for not agreeing with me. Like I wanted to work with people that I disagreed with. But man, they're making it hard right now because that's just pure lunacy. It's just nuts.
I know. It's tough. So another example was this past spring session. There was a regulation that went through that if someone was delinquent on their child support, that they lost SNAP benefits.
But
exactly, our argument was, the large majority of those people have children in their home, and children are going to go hungry, and they're like, no, but they're not with those kids. Like, they're not paying child support, so that means that the parents aren't together. And so, but we're like, but they're probably living in another separate home with other children, and you're going to remove food from those children. And if I'm not mistaken, I mean, the estimate that we got from Kentucky Voices for Health was about 11,000 kids were going to lose, food benefits out of their home. And that was just, we were everybody was just looking at that in two very, very different ways.
Yeah.
And things like that are really, really, it's really disappointing. You look at the aspect of it. Obviously, I can't stand the thought of any child, any person, but especially a child going hungry.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side of that, removing large amounts of those SNAP benefits from our economy are huge. What that does to our local grocery stores and our local farmers.
Especially out east. Where
I mean,
without those customers, it's not like people are drifting in from the highway. Like, they need their community.
Yeah. So, something that was totally meant to be punitive has all of these unintended consequences. And that's something that just doesn't get thought about enough. We talk about, we argue about unintended consequences a lot on the floor as the minority party. We stand up and talk about that a lot, but it often
really
doesn't. It often doesn't.
I think that's what
get us
Democrats
anywhere.
are best at, is like figuring out. Like I'm like I said, I try to be real both sides, but I think we've proven unequivocally that the Kentucky State Republicans are terrible at thinking through implications of what they're going to do. They're not looking. They're just hoping. Well,
and it too many bills get passed too quickly. There's we're bending rules here and bending rules there, and a lot of bills just aren't given the amount of time that they need for the public to weigh in, for people to know what's going on. Just because we can pass a bill in one day doesn't mean we should pass a bill in one day. And I think that you see that when too many times we come back and somebody stands up on the floor and they're like, well, this is a cleanup bill. But then there's always a cleanup bill to the cleanup bill.
Yeah.
And that sometimes is maddening.
It never ends.
Because all of those things could have been avoided if we had just, really stopped and had great debate time. If we could have worked on these bills truly together. Committee meetings are really meant to get in and to be able to hash out bills and talk about those things and be collaborative and what needs to go into these bills. And very rarely does that happen.
I've noticed that. Every time I go to a meeting, I'm like, every decision's already been made, and they're just going through a ritual where they're presenting it. Mm-hmm. But they don't want to hear anything from anybody. They've already decided. And, I mean, the job, as I conceive the job of legislator, the job is actually the deliberation.
It should be, and we don't do enough of that.
Well, it's the metric again. Like, people want to be able to go home and at election time and say, like, I passed this enormous number of bills. Mm-hmm. And, like, I think that's one of the reasons why, like, naming post office bills are great, because people can go home and say, like, I passed 300 bills, They were all the names of streets. But that's fine. That's fine. I'm perfectly happy with that. I actually think it's wonderful. I'm a big fan of the government is best which governs least, and I would like to see legislators who like made a point out of parity. Like, I passed this many and I repealed this many.
Oh, well, then you love Representative Mary Lou Marzian, who she files bills. Obviously, she doesn't get to pass very many of them, but she files parity bills quite often.
Really? Who's she? I've never heard of her.
So she is a representative. Oh my goodness, she has been serving in the legislature for 25 plus years.
Really?
She is out of Louisville. I believe she's District 34. Uh-huh. And she is a beacon of very liberal light.
Well, Louisville, but yeah.
But she's great. She's my seatmate on the floor, and she just keeps me laughing. She's so funny. Uh-huh. But she has a tiny bit of a sarcastic streak in her, and so she will file some of those bills that you're talking about. Yeah. For instance, one year she filed a bill that said that in order for men to get Viagra, that they had to have permission from their
that was
spouses.
Hilarious. That was her?
That's her.
Wait, what's her last name again?
Marzian. Marzin.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. Now I have a visual memory of that. Yes, that was a really funny one. That made me laugh.
So she files bills like that, not all the time, but often.
That's fine.
And, and the point is to make a point, right?
Well, yeah. That's your job. You have to. It's like, this is not a job for shrinking violets. You have to be out there. You have to, like, you have to occasionally stir some controversy. Yeah. So, by all means, like, do that more often. And I'm also a huge fan of sundown sound provisions. Like, the mask, you can always tell when they know what they're doing is a bad idea because they put a sundown provision on it.
Yes.
honestly, sundown provisions should be on basically everything.
Well, they should, especially, and I might get into a lot of trouble by saying this, but I really think that we need to reevaluate a lot of the tax breaks that we give to folks.
Yes.
We talk. We just talked about this huge economic development deal that we did, and so those get done a lot. But then, do they still need to be in place 30 years down the road?
Yeah, it creates a situation where only an accountant can.
Yes, especially when we're in a state that right now we give away more in tax breaks than we actually take in.
Yeah, I guess we do. Like, is it still true that Yum Brands hasn't paid taxes for X number of years?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I mean, it's hard to be like, oh, we would be able to do such and so if we could make this impossible thing happen. But Yum Brands paying their taxes was a real dream of mine for a while.
Yeah, well, and I mean, in little things, every year we are constantly, passing laws that give a small tax break to, firefighters or veterans. And those things are awesome. Like, I think that we should be doing that. But ultimately, you end up waking up one day and you've given out $13 billion in tax cuts.
Yeah,
and so a lot of them are absolutely well-meaning. They're made for economic development. They're made to incentivize people to do, things that really need to happen. And they have really pure intentions. Yeah. But then it's like a death by 1,000 cuts.
They do mean well.
Yeah.
I mean, a huge part of the problem we're having right now is people are so isolated from the consequences of their mistakes. With Afghanistan, with coronavirus, both. Like, I hate to say it, but if people had seen the bodies, we'd have totally different conversations in both cases.
Yes, I agree.
I don't want to, rub corpses in people's faces, but if the corpses exist, it's just too easy for people to ignore. Okay, so back into sort of the wheelhouse of what we're working on these days. So just imagine somebody that's listening to us is thinking about running for office. Let's talk about campaign finance a little bit.
Okay.
How hard do you find it to stay in compliance with all the campaign finance laws?
It's really not that hard.
Yeah.
It's really not that hard. You can't take corporate money.
Yeah.
There are limits as to what any individual or PAC can give you.
Do you hit those limits? Do people hit those limits?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Like an individual can only give $2,000. A PAC can only give $2,000. And if anybody wants to give me $2,000, I'll gladly take it. But but again, it's those smaller dollar donors that mean so much. In my very first year, when you're a brand new candidate, that's your hardest year ever of trying to raise money. You're brand new. A lot of people don't know who you are.
You're nervous.
Everybody is wondering, who is this new person on the political scene? Because unfortunately, we've grown really accustomed to the same folks over and over and over. So I think it's really good. Again, hear me saying everyday Kentuckians need to step up to represent everyday Kentuckians. So I always encourage people to take the leap and step up, put their name on the ballot. And it can be difficult, but you find people who believe in you. You find people who, have the same ideas and ideology that you do. And the money comes when you're out there and people can tell that you're genuine and that you really want to do what they also believe in. The money will come. But I remember in 2018, one year, as I would go to the post office box and, you would get out these remittance envelopes where somebody has picked up one at a fundraiser or been given one somewhere. And it contained $11.
Yeah.
And that extra dollar, it made me cry because, you're as a brand new person trying to run, you haven't been involved in politics ever, and you're just really stepping up because you believe it's the right thing to do. Yeah. Knowing that somebody believed in you enough and sacrificed enough, that extra dollar, we have all kinds of people who can write a $2,000 check and it's nothing to them.
But the 11.
But that $11, that
Yeah.
was, that extra dollar was a sacrifice for somebody. And again, talk about things that you don't take lightly. Those really hit home and really make you stop and think about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And it's really heartwarming. So yeah.
I was on a campaign once where like a high school kid subscribed us $3 a week or $3 a month.
Yes.
And I was like, I did the math and I was like, well, bless your heart all the same. Like,
Yep.
It's so sweet of you.
It is. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
It means a lot that, when people are willing to, we talk about a lot about give until it hurts.
Yeah.
And,
Well, I think that's the truth is that I look around at things that work or things that have worked in the past, and I realize that like there's two types of organizations. There's types that are dying from neglect, which is what we are right now, and there's the type where people are so into it it's scary, and there's nothing in between. And if the Kentucky Democratic Party is ever going to get going again like it was, then there's going to be things like we go to Fancy Farm and little old lady's going to be like, I sent you all my money, and
Yes.
now I'm obviously hungry, but I'm smiling, and you're like,
yeah.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, it's great. And, and there's a lot of new faces. There's a lot of, I sense a bubbling of young folks to come up soon in the Democratic Party. I was just on a Zoom call with the Young Dems out of Lexington on Monday night, and
that's nice.
There's a lot of energy there. There's a lot of excitement.
What are they doing?
And I'm excited. So, they're trying to connect with folks that are going to be candidates, and they know that they want to work to try to help get candidates elected that they believe in. But they're also doing a lot of work in the community, and I think that that's so important.
Yeah.
If we're ever going to heal ourselves as a state or as a nation and try to cut out some of the toxic political stress that we have been kind of entangled in over the last years, I think that that's going to be important. I think people getting out and getting involved in their community and working on things that aren't politically related at all.
Yeah.
And I think that that's how we start to come together again and really start to come together again to realize, our commonalities and working toward a common goal, and that working together is always better.
I hope so. I mean, to rebuild the social life of this nation after what's just been done to it, it seems to me like a challenging task. But, we didn't have a choice. I get it, but it's just going to be tough to get people out of their homes and back involved again.
It is, but, I know that people ultimately are hungry for community, and but I know that that's been also one of those unintended consequences of a pandemic, trying to keep people safe, especially if they're immunocompromised or they're elderly or things like that, and the isolation that some people have experienced. Their worlds have become very, very small.
Oh, it killed
and
my
it's
grandmother.
very, very sad.
It did. I mean, without a doubt, the quarantine. I was at a nursing home for most of last year, because it would have been May or something. I went over to my grandmother's house on Monday, and then I left. And then I came back on Friday, and I realized that she had been sitting by herself watching Andy Griffith and playing solitaire for literally 4 days.
Aww.
And I started spending a lot of time over there, but it was already too late.
Yeah.
But, I mean, watching all the other old folks in that facility decline over the last year.
Well, and it was really hard on those people when they had to completely shut down and no visitors were allowed at all.
That was awful.
It was awful, and I absolutely understand why we needed to do that. But another good thing that came out of the special session that we just had is one of the bills. So they were kind of divided up. Like there was an education bill and there was a healthcare bill.
Yeah.
The healthcare bill had a provision in there that allowed essential caregivers to be designated in long-term care facilities, so that even if they do have to go back on some form of a lockdown, that if there's been an essential caregiver designated, that person can still come in. Now, those people are going to be subject to being tested and happen to wear all kinds of PPE and all that kind of stuff. So each facility has the bandwidth to be able to do what they need to do to keep their people safe. But hopefully we won't see the isolation in some of those people that we saw before.
Yeah, well, a lot of them died.
Yeah.
And a lot of them went crazy. I mean, it was just like being in a nursing home or in a facility. You know, I wasn't actually, there was like a cottage next to the facility or a bunch of cottages next to the facility, so I could see everything. Like, I swear to God, by the end of that year, half the buildings were empty and there wasn't one single coronavirus fatality. Not one single one. It was all, I mean, just illnesses concomitant to loneliness. Like every single one of them. That just...
You know, I know it's really sad. I'm definitely one of those people. You know, as a people person, I believe that we are meant to live in community. We're not meant to be alone. And so I'm, yeah, we are very social animals. Even those that are introverts that extrovert well. You know, at some point they need social interaction, and ultimately we crave that. So I joke sometimes. My husband has worked from home for a long time. Even before quarantine hit in 2020. And we I have often joked that he could stay at home with our 3 cats and be perfectly content forever. But I think, but when quarantine actually hit, and even though he was used to working from home, but it got to where he really couldn't get out and do a lot of other things. I mean, it really set in on him in a very different way. And that was interesting and kind of, was a little bit eye-opening for me. Obviously, we stopped at the General Assembly for a few weeks till we could kind of figure out what we were going to do. But then we kept coming in. So we got to a point to where, you know, only the public could come in, only employees and our staff were on like rotating schedules and things. But I was still going into Frankfurt pretty often. So I did not get that isolation like a lot of other people did. I don't know that I would really call us essential workers, but we were going in anyway.
No,
we didn't stop.
You actually were.
But,
no, I mean, a pandemic is clearly inseparable from its population.
Right.
And you can't, all pandemics are political. I get what Alfred Camus was talking about now. Or Albert? Anyway, Camus, he wrote The Plague. Anyway, you can't separate the pandemic from the population. And if you're going to just wish, like, these people would do this or this people would do that, while you're wishing, why don't you just wish coronavirus is gone? If you're just going to run everything in your own magical way, then just go all out. Go travel back in time and kill Hitler. Like, what are we doing wasting time here? Like, it's all political. It always is. And the only way out of this pandemic is going to have to go through our political process. And so you all actually are, in a very real sense, essential workers. I could make some criticism about performance on individual levels, but you all had to be there thinking. And as much as I deplore their response, I do see the logic of the Republicans going like, it's not really that bad. Let's just all get in and get over with it. Like, I think they're wrong, but I see what they're saying, and it is cromulent. It's just not smart, and I want smart. You're listening to the dulcet tones of Cherlynn Stevenson, our duly elected representative from the 88th District to the Kentucky State Legislature. You're listening to Radio Free Eskippakithiki. The reason I named the show that is so I'd learn how to spell it and pronounce it. It's really tough, but I'm getting there. And so I guess I should move into my pre-written questions because we're getting fairly close to the end here. What's your 5-year plan? Like, what do you want to do in the long run? Do you want to stay legislator forever?
And again, you know, for the time being right now, as long as the folks of the 88th, you know, want me, I'm willing to keep serving. We have redistricting coming up. Don't forget.
True.
And so who knows what the district will look like after that. You know, I think that Lexington will likely get an additional House district. And so
you
how
open
that
up the news and find out that like you've got the northern suburbs of Austin, Texas.
Yeah, whoever knows. So, you know, it could look very, very different. So I'm going to not hold my breath, but I'll be holding my breath.
Yeah.
You know, and so we'll see.
Yeah, I guess they'll try. But isn't Lexington like topping lists for one of the most liberal cities in America now?
Lexington is getting bluer and bluer. And, you know, the 88th, of course, is the suburbs. And we're going, again, I go all the way out to the county line. So, and my district contains parts of Heartland. And Heartland contains the actual reddest precinct in Lexington. Yeah.
Is that where that church is by Athens or where's
No,
is it
it's
around that
actually
church?
over in Heartland. So it's kind of like behind the wall in Heartland.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
So they've got their own little like conservative colony back there.
Well, I mean, it's just I mean, I guess,
Yeah.
those
That's
folks
hilarious.
are obviously they're really big houses, so they're fairly wealthy.
That's true. That's true.
But again, the district has become bluer and bluer. When I first looked at the district, actually, in 2017, there were about 2,800 more Republicans than Democrats.
Yeah.
The last time I checked was probably April or May, and I think it was down to like 140. So
Yeah.
it's moving pretty quickly. But the 88th has grown, so I currently have about 20% more people than I should.
Yeah.
So it's currently the second largest House district. And it's got to be cut down, obviously, so all 100 House districts are supposed to be fairly even. So I'm going to stand to lose some folks. So it just depends on where they want to cut, where they want to wiggle. But, they can't just completely move me without cutting
Yeah.
a little bit first. So
Do they have to keep it? Isn't there a rule that they have to keep the district mostly in Fayette County or something like that?
no, they don't. So it's really, there's a population limit for whole counties. If there's a population under a certain amount, then you can't break up that county.
Yeah,
But if
that's
it's
what I heard.
over, then you can break up the county. And Fayette is already split. So we have folks that represent small portions of Fayette County, and the remainder of their district are in other counties. So
Yeah.
technically, I could be drawn
Yeah, like Ralph
out
Alvarado comes
into.
in. No, not Alvarado. What's his name? The Dobson. Roy, Ryan Dotson. Thank you.
Dotson, yes, out of Jessamine. So Pfister comes in. He took Joe's seat, so he comes in for a little bit. Matt Cook out of Bourbon County comes into Fayette for just a little bit. Phil Pratt actually out of Scott comes in just a little bit. He's got Scott Owen and a little bit of Lexington. So we're already split up. We'll see. There are however. Lots of districts that are wholly contained within Fayette County. So we'll see what they're going to do.
It's going to be exciting.
It is going to be.
they're not
I
gonna
don't know
ask you,
about
right?
exciting. It's
It's
going to be
gonna be-
interesting.
Yeah.
So we're set. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. The filing deadline currently is the first Friday in January, and we go back into session on that first Tuesday.
What do you mean the filing deadline to
So the
run?
filing deadline to run.
Oh, so they've got to finish the redistricting soon.
So redistricting has to happen fairly quickly. Our guess, I think a lot of the Republicans have been advocating for another special session to come in and do redistricting.
How could they do it any other way?
Well, they would just have to do it once we got into session. So, we would have to go in and they would probably immediately try to move the filing deadline back, maybe.
Yeah, I would hope
Last
so.
year, so this past spring, the House passed a bill to move the filing deadline back to the end of January, and the
Yeah.
Senate never took that bill up. So it's going to be interesting to see what's happening. Obviously, they're not telling us.
No. Well, I mean that's the problem with when you're trying to rule by fiat and you're trying to like actively freeze people
Yeah.
out. Like, yeah, I mean, but that creates an impossible situation.
It is. So, but the people have a right to equitable and fair maps, and there's a lot of people out there advocating for fair maps. You could even go to, I believe it's fairmaps.com.
Yeah.
And look, the League of Women Voters are huge advocates of fair maps, and they actually have fair maps on their website. If you want to go out and look at those, and then compare those to what the actual maps look like when they come out.
Yeah. That's that's some real rubber meets road
Yeah,
politics.
but
when you get to
there's
redistricting.
redistricting is a really hard process. There
Yes.
are just so many rules and regulations that
Mm-hmm.
dictate what that looks like. And right now the supermajority, they're sitting pretty.
Yeah.
So with 75 seats in the House, I'm not sure exactly what they want to do, how many more they feel like they need.
I mean,
But, Lexington and Louisville, we don't have that many seats outside of Lexington and Louisville right now. We have 2 in Northern Kentucky, and we have Patty Minter out in Bowling Green, and then we have Angie Hatton and Ashley Tech at Lafferty in the East. So
that is it, isn't it?
it is it. There's 25 of us.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what? This state is at least a third some of the smartest, most rubber-to-the-road liberals you'll ever meet in your life. I mean, one of the things I love about Kentucky is people are so smart here. Like, they don't even realize it. You know, Kentucky gets the reputation as dumb. It's wrong. Kentucky's not dumb. It's mean. Like, we're mean enough to pretend to be dumb. But we are not even slightly dumb. And this state is filled with extremely intelligent liberals. And this is the amount of representation we have. Like, we're at least a third of the state, and we've got a tenth, a quarter of the seats, if that much.
Well, we talk about how the pendulum swings, right?
Yeah.
Everybody always says the pendulum swings in politics. Well, the Democrats held the Kentucky House for 100 years.
Yeah.
And
mistakes were made.
And
Terrible,
we lost
we
lost the majority in 2016, so it's probably going to take a while for the pendulum to start swinging the other way. But I'm dedicated to do my part. I know that there are a lot of Rocky Adkins, Eastern Kentucky Democrats still left, and maybe they're out there, maybe they've been voting a little bit red. But
we got to bring them in instead of pushing them out.
I agree. I agree. Well, I think that we have the winning message, and so, but how do we really get that message out? It's really tough when when we're talking about healthcare and education and all those good things. And we laugh sometimes, and we talk about how the 3 Gs.
Yeah.
God, guns, and gynecology. And that's just, it's dominated our politics, and it makes me really sad because, again, I think that we just need to really get out there and talk about what state level politics looks like and how vastly different it is from federal level politics, because federal level politics are bleeding down into our state politics far too often.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Bevin essentially ran a national campaign against a local candidate.
Correct.
And I mean, that's pretty common.
Yeah.
Like, what's his name? Goforth was bad about that too. Like, he connected Kelly Smith to all sorts of people that she never even met because they understand their constituency. I mean, who am I to argue with success? Yeah, like, I'm sure you ask yourself this question, but I do too. Like, if it were to happen that through just bad luck and bad chance and what have you, the Democratic Party collapsed even further in this state, do you feel, this is a tough question, do you feel that you would be, do you feel that your responsibility is more to your constituents or to maintain the party? I guess that's not a good way to put the question, but you see what I'm saying?
Well,
like, is there a point that the Democratic Party could get to where you'd have to be like, look, it's more important that I take care of these people than that I keep a D after my name?
That's really hard. I was born in a family that was Democratic.
Yeah.
My dad is what we call a yellow dog Democrat. And so that's tough because it has informed my values. It has informed the person, that I am. It informs, my faith has informed why I am a Democrat. And I know that a lot of people don't even want to connect those two. A lot of people will tell you that you can't, have faith and also be a Democrat. And I think that's
wrong.
Terribly wrong.
Wonder what it's like being wrong.
But in a...
If any listener out there knows what it's like to be wrong, please call us because we're really curious. It looks painful.
It's so funny. We completely sidetracked, but my husband and I were on vacation, and we went in, and in the bathroom, there were 2 hooks for towels, and so I hung my towel on the right, and I told my husband, I said, hey, I hung my towel on the right, and you can remember it because I'm always right. But anyway. Back to your question.
Absolutely really serious. Okay, yeah, answer
back to your question. Yeah. Back to your question. Again, me as a person, and my values and my beliefs, that's important to me. However, I do believe in the elected position that I am in, that my first responsibility is to my constituents.
Yeah. And I mean, I got to put this in, but like, a problem I'm having with Kentucky Democrats right now is they are representing a population that is massively suspicious of what's going on right now because Kentucky is a selfish state and it is a skeptical state. I mean, I love this place, but the people in this state have been done wrong. They're very suspicious. And this vaccine resistance is not coming from the Republicans. The diehard Republicans are almost as bought in as the Democrats are. You can look at the statistics; it's right there. The suspicion that so many Democrats are feeling is not being reflected at all in our elected representatives at all, and it's actually starting to get a little bit weird. Like that actually upsets me. I would like more hard questions coming from Democrats about what's going on instead of just like repeating of things that are clearly absurd. Like, I don't ever need to hear that long-term testing has been done again. Those people are arguing with a calendar. Like, long-term testing will be done when 2019 plus 5 has been equaled. There's no jumping to the front of the line on that. It's like saying like 9 women can have 1 baby in 1 month. It's not possible. It can't be done. And I need fewer absurdities.
Right.
And more just realization and recognition of basic realities.
Right. And I hear you. And I think what a lot of people are referring to there is the mRNA technology has been around, and that's been worked on for a long time. But
Actually
with, you know, and that's semantics. It is.
It is. This is why I try so hard to never talk about this. Like, I do actually have the background. You know, when everybody gets in these arguments and they start, well, you know, do you have a scientific background? Do you have? Well, yeah, I do. And that's why I feel really upset whenever I see Dr. Fauci on TV, because I remember the AIDS epidemic quite well. And the idea... Oh, gosh. Hold on a second. The idea that the American government cannot have a disastrously misplaced response to a very real crisis.
Right.
A response that, like, gets a lot of people killed without anybody ever paying the price for it is conclusively disproven by the fact that I am looking at Dr. Fauci right now. Like, maybe he got better. Maybe things have improved. But I don't hear anybody saying it. Like, I know what it looks like when people are sorry. You can tell what it looks like when people are sorry about what they've done. You can tell, like, America's really sorry about racism.
Right.
You can tell, like, finally, after all these years of putting up with it, we're really sorry about racism because we never shut up about it. Like, it's dominated every conversation for... I don't see any of that conversation about what happened with AIDS or what happened with polio or what happened with Spanish influenza. I see people going like, everything's fine. I don't have polio. Everything's fine. Gosh, it's not that simple. It really isn't. Anyway, this is me talking again.
Right. No.
This is what I was trying to avoid.
It's all good. I knew you would find a soapbox at some point.
I have to.
But it's okay.
It is technically my show. And also, this show is... also always been very Clark County centric. So we're speaking to Cherlynn Stevenson, the 88th District Representative, for the last 10 minutes of our show. So I had one more question for you. What do you think about criminal justice reform in Kentucky?
Well, you know, I think, and you mentioned it earlier, you know, we had a great start when, you know, Governor Beshear offered, you know, not the pardons. What's the word I'm looking for?
Exonerations or exonerations. Yes.
Yes. So I think that was a great start. I think that there's more to do. I think it's something that we talk about in Frankfort a lot. We haven't seen a ton of movement on it in the last couple of sessions, but I know it's something that people are talking about and thinking about all the time. I've actually been working on a cannabis bill with Rachel Roberts.
Oh,
and
really?
It contains everything. So it's hemp, it's medical cannabis, and it's responsible adult use as well. And it contains a lot of provisions in there about expungement and decriminalization and things like that. Obviously, I think most of us know that, you know, cannabis, medical or otherwise, is probably not going to pass here in Kentucky until something happens at the federal level. But we are trying to be really intentional with this bill and think about all of that process from, you know, seed on up, so that when that lever finally does flip at the federal level, someone has really been intentionally thoughtful about what the process and the mechanisms would look like. We spent a lot of time. We've been meeting about every other week throughout this entire interim on this bill. And it stems from, actually, so she took a bill.
No pun intended, I'm sure.
Yes. So she took a bill last year that had previously been Cluster Howard's. And
Yes.
he retired, so she asked if she could take that bill, and so she kind of finagled with it a little bit, made it her own, and so we've really just done a deep dive into it this year and stripped it all out and started from scratch. And that criminal justice piece is part of it that has been really important for us, and we've been really trying to take our time and get it right. So even though we know it has a snowball's chance and where of passing.
No, but you're right. When it's ready, you want to be standing by the door with your shoes on.
Yes, we do. But I think there's probably going to be a lot of talk around this bill, even though it's going to have zero legs of going anywhere. And I think that decriminalization piece is going to be a really great talking point, and hopefully it can spur other conversations, and maybe just small pieces of that can kind of come out and spur other actions.
Like, what is it? What is it? If Kentucky was its own nation, we'd have like the highest population of incarcerated women in the world, or something very close to that.
It is something very similar to that, and it's disturbing.
It is.
It's really disturbing. Anytime a people, as a state or as a nation, when we pay more to incarcerate someone than we do to educate them, there's a problem.
Well, we're robbing Peter to pay Paul there, but that is the problem, is that a lot of these towns, including my little town, balance their budget on jail payments now, and they need it to survive at the level they're at. And they don't know what to do, and they've been doing it for so long, they can't think of another way to do it. It needs to be changed at the state level.
Well, and I think when you look at our drug problem, we cannot incarcerate these people into into recovery. It's a disease and they need to be treated, and incarceration is not the answer.
I was talking to my county attorney about that a little while ago, I guess back in May, and he was like, yeah, well, you know what? I know exactly how much Narcan has been used in our prisons, and that nobody's overdosing when they're in jail. And I was like, okay, you got me. But all the same, I feel like that's sort of picking the one statistic that supports your point of view there, Mr. Elkins. Like, I think there's a whole bigger problem than
right. Well, I am encouraged that the Chamber of Commerce has really come out on that and are speaking out about that.
They are?
They are actually talking about that and speaking out about the fact that, our drug and opioid epidemic is out of control, and that incarceration is not the answer. And they're starting to push that other way. And we know the wonderful relationship that the Chamber and the GOP have together.
Oh, my God. Yeah, they're good
no,
friends.
but that really inspires hope in me that, that we can maybe start to make some changes.
Yeah. I mean, if I wanted to live in a state where Democrats just did what the heck they wanted to, and everybody can, my way or the highway, like, I could have lived in California. No, I came here because I want to work with Republicans. And if a Republican is doing something right, that is fine with me. Not going to argue. I'm very much the same as he's like. I'm from a Democratic family, and anytime it even crosses my mind to leave, I start picturing the conversation I would have to have with each individual relative, and I'm like, I can't do it. I'm a Democrat for life. Like Jimmy Carter brought me into this party, and I can't leave. But
no, well, and it's difficult, and it's too much of our politics has become othering, and we put people into these silos, and they're not in there. I have a lot of Republicans on my team. My treasurer is a Republican. So it's not that they're bad.
Good for you, by the way. That's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, that's really good.
So I very much have a bipartisan campaign.
Yeah.
And again, it just goes back to, it's a group of people who are putting people over politics, and we are just trying to do the right thing.
It's like that game theory. You ever hear of tit for tat? The game theory thing?
No.
Well, I'm not going to explain it because it's 5 minutes. But
I'll look it up.
It really is hard to work with people who are convinced that you're evil and that they therefore are justified in doing whatever they need to do. And it's hard to, and fortunately, thanks to COVID, we now have parity with everybody calling each other baby killers. Like it used to be all one side, but now everybody's doing it.
Well, it's really tough. And, a really good example of that. So I was talking to one of my newer colleagues from across the aisle recently, and she found out that I was from Eastern Kentucky in Knott County, and we realized that we knew a lot of the same people. And so some of the people that she just had worked with for a long time, and she was like, "Oh my goodness, I just love those people desperately." And you know, after that talk, she was like, "Oh, it's going to be really hard to vote against you now," and that just kind of like.
I guess it's the nicest thing she could say.
Okay.
We could also try working together, but
you know, yeah. So
it's tough.
But that built-in mentality of, oh, you're a Democrat, I have to vote against anything that you want, or I have to vote against your point of view. It makes me really sad. We've got to get away from it.
Yeah, we do. And someone's going to have to take the hit. Well, okay, so, but you know that on criminal justice, you know that there's no statute of limitations on anything in Kentucky, right?
Maybe not. Maybe I didn't realize that.
There's no statute. The only statute of limitations on any crime in Kentucky, it was introduced by Bevin. You only have a year to sue over medical malpractice now. Anything from felony on up, there's literally no time limit, which means that the jails are literally, without exaggeration, especially in these small towns, filled with people who got in trouble in the 80s. People with parking tickets left over from the 90s.
Wow.
I mean, this is absolutely happening. It's not theoretical. And I don't know what percentage of our jail that is, but it's a chunk. And that is something the legislature could definitely fix.
Absolutely.
Like, just to say, like, after 20 years, we're not going to pursue you for a misdemeanor anymore, or a warrant or what have you, a bench warrant, I guess is the word I'm looking for, would get a lot of people out of our jail. And that is something that the legislature could do. So I'm hoping that you wave your magic legislature wand and fix that one. But that's my big hope. That's my big wish.
All right.
Well, anyway.
It's a good takeaway.
Yeah, right? We have 3 minutes left. So what do you want to say?
Well, again, I just, my greatest hope is that we can stop looking at each other as Republican or Democrat. Again, I've said, I'm Democrat through and through, and I'm not apologetic about that, but, I want us to stop looking at each other as one or the other. We're all Kentuckians. And, at the end of the day, again, most of us want all of the same things. We want, a safe community to live in. We want a good education for our kids. We want healthcare to be available and affordable, when and if we get sick. And there are so many things that we have, in common, more than we have different. And so I just encourage anybody that's listening still to us,
maybe
to just try to make, a conscious effort to look at other people like that and start trying to find the things, the positive and not the negative.
Yeah. I mean, we're here to build coalitions, not to go it alone.
Absolutely.
You want to go it alone, go work on your screenplay.
Yes. Our motto is united we stand, divided we fall.
This is the Commonwealth.
More of us need to be doing that.
Yeah, and we're running out of time. I'll tell you, the rest of America's on the way here.
Well, thanks so much for having me. This has been really enjoyable.
I think this is the longest we've ever talked, actually. It's really
I think it probably is. Yeah.
Everybody's always so busy all the time.
I know. So, but thanks so much for having me in.
Thanks for making a minute to come down and hang out with the students of UK and such and such. Do you have anything special to say for UK?
Absolutely. I don't go Cats. Are you kidding me?
Figures.
Listen. Yes.
I'm the other kind of Kentuckian. I'm like,
sorry.
I hear I hear you bounce the ball and it's fun.
Basketball is in our blood, man. We just can't. I know.
What is it with Kentucky and the color blue?
It's bluegrass.
Bluegrass, blue people,
blue everything.
Yeah, blue flag. Everything's blue.
It's great.
It's the weirdest thing. There's something to it.
It's good.
Anyway, well, we have 1 minute left, and the other DJ is not here, so I guess we're just going to play some music and be done, right?
All right. Sounds great.
Well,
Thanks
thank you so
much,
Cherlynn.
Awesome.
Yeah, this has been Radio Free Eskippakithiki, and